Hey there, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. Let's talk about how to apply IDEANCE process step 5 next to Supersize and Grow Your Business. We're talking about our IDEANCE process. We're spending a whole week on this, 7 whole days. A week isn't 5 days, a week is 7 days. So we're spending 7 days to go with the 7 steps of the IDEANCE process. Today is step 5 next, which is, it's a really important step. And I like to add it to my processes because otherwise I tend to hurry through the process and I don't take time to think about a couple of things here that are important. Number one is to pause and think about some things and how they're working out. Number one, whenever we're doing something, whenever we take an action, we picked an action yesterday, we took that action. I'm assuming that you did that because I did. And then the next day comes and we're like, okay, is it done yet? And usually the answer is no, right? Wouldn't it be nice if we took some initiative, took an action, acted yesterday, and the result was already known today? That is seldom, if ever, the case. Sometimes it is. Sometimes my action might be to pick up the phone and call someone. And if I am lucky enough to catch them and get to talk to them, I might have already gotten my answer. Or I might already know that that action can be checked off the box because it's been completed. That doesn't happen that often, not even for me. And I usually like to set things up so that it does work out for me in my life and in my businesses. So the first thing we need to do is take a pause, be patient, understand that the action we put in place may take some time. But that doesn't stop us today from saying, okay, well, what's the next step? What is the next thing I can do? Because we can only do what we can do and what we have control over, whether it's for us personally, and even it applies personally in our businesses, or for our businesses, right? We have a whole lot of constraints outside of us that are outside of our control. There's a whole lot of things that impact us. The bigger our organization gets, the bigger and the more constraints there are to deal with, which is why we build teams to help us do that. So I like to pause and say, okay, where are we? How do we know? And this is a place where I also like to think of, how am I going to know if I'm filling that gap or not? Am I making progress toward what it is that I want? Or am I actually going away from it? Because guess what? Sometimes we take an action and it has the opposite effect that we think it's going to. Say we take an action and we find out that we feel worse and more fearful. In my case, I'm working on fear and fearlessness. Say I decide I'm going to get a psychiatrist or a shrink or an expert to help me out, but I'm more afraid of that process than I actually am of fear itself, right? That might have a negative impact, a negative effect. And sometimes we do that. And then where along going down that road of finding that person, do I say, gosh, this just doesn't feel like it's the right move for me? And only we can answer that for ourselves, and only we can answer that for our business. Of course, we have other people helping us in our business, and they can help us to come to different conclusions. But the whole point is, we want to know what's next. We want to know, how do we measure? How do we know we're getting closer to our end goal and the thing that we want? We need to find ways to subjectively and objectively, if possible, measure that progress. And depending on what we're working on, usually in the area of emotions, I will just journal and I'll go back and I'll read journal entries, or I'll find ways to measure what can be measured, but I don't get too bent out of shape about it. There's certain areas of our life that normally we don't apply to our business, but we should, because they give us a competitive advantage. And that's why I like to talk about them, because most people will never tell you, hey, what's the emotional temperature of your culture? What is, or even talk about your culture at all, which is sad, because that is probably what kills more organizations than almost anything else. I guess it's probably cash flow first, but secondly is, if you've got problems within your organization with relationships, core values, principles, purpose, alignment, resilience, if there's infighting or gossiping or anything negative like that that's happening in your organization, that can undermine and destroy your business as fast as bad cash flow can. And the other thing I like to think about here is a quote from a movie, a famous children's movie, because I have beautiful granddaughters that I get to watch clips and snippets of movies with. And one of those is Frozen 2. And Frozen 2, Anna repeats, I think, what she heard from General Matthias, but I could be wrong. But anyway, it's said a couple of times in the movie, just do the next right thing. And that is such a powerful reminder for us to not get stuck waiting for something to happen. We can pile a bunch of actions on top of one another. And if we have ways to measure what's working and what isn't, or if ways to tap into that, it's even more powerful. But I seldom, if ever, just do one thing and then sit and do nothing else and wait for that one thing to prove out and then add another thing. You know, scientifically, they would say change one thing at a time. I don't believe in that. I have ascribed to the Tony Robbins method of take massive action, and you're much more likely to get what you want faster than if you just do one thing and then sit and wait. Do one thing and sit and wait. But I will add on top of all of this, do what feels right for you. If you're a person that goes step by step by step by step and needs to wait to find out if the thing worked before you do something else, do it that way. Be you. But if you're like me, you'll just keep piling on the actions, and you'll make jumps and starts. And some things will have you go back a couple of steps. Other things will give you 10% or 10 steps closer to what it is that you want. But only you can decide what that is. All right. That was a little weird and mystic, right? All right. Any questions? If you need help with this, if you need help talking through or walking through what is the next best thing that you can do, what is the next step? And it might just be, hey, wait for your most favorite person to call you back so you can, brainstorm with them. Whatever it is, listen to your gut, listen to your intuition. Let your intellect, your heart, I always say my head, my heart, and intuition have to be aligned and all going in the same direction. And then it's a yes. If any one of them isn't, then it's a no. And it might be a no. This isn't right yet. I have to figure out what my next thing is. All right. Hope that makes sense to you. If I can help you in any way, please ask. Otherwise, have an awesome day. Figure out what's next for you in filling your emotional gap by the end of this year. And again, like I said, if you need somebody to run it by, please just ask. Share in the comments below that you've done it. If you're super brave, share what your next thing is. Be cryptic if you want, if you think it has to be secret, but otherwise share. Because when we share, we help by learning from one another. All right, have an awesome day, and I'll, of course, see you tomorrow.